This goes back to what I was talking about earlier when he says Moors should go to the Organization of American States. Okay, all of that now has, for the most part, been incorporated into, or they work with the United Nations. The United Nations right now is probably the biggest organization, like the Organization of American States. Those are all the states on the American continent and the Caribbean. The only problem that we have is we're not recognized as a nation. And in one of those human rights reports, in which I've tried this, I have a letter that I sent actually to the Secretary General of the United Nations. It was lost in well, it's supposedly still sitting in a New York post office 3 years later, certified mail. But right now in that report, they say that the United States is not letting out individual complaints to the international community, basically stopping any complaint that anyone could have. So, and like I said, I still have the receipt. I call every now and again just to see where it's at, and yeah, it's still supposedly in a New York post office. Um, but even with that, we still have to organize. When you look at every nation on the planet, from the largest nation to the smallest indigenous nation, all of them have a hierarchy or some type of government where there's a leader or there are representatives to represent them, whether they be male or female. Every nation on the planet has that. That is what that our problem is. What I'm seeing, and I like to challenge people. Um, and what I see is there are a lot of people out here who, because of their position in their organization, they refuse to accept the facts, not the truth. They refuse to accept the facts. So that's the egos are one of the things that are uh, stopping any progress. But yeah, that would be a move to make, except we're not organized enough to do that. That's where our shortcoming that's where our shortfalls are. That's why we haven't gone anywhere in almost 100 years. We haven't had any progress since 1928 when he got the mandate for the land. That was our last serious progress. Now we've been there, and the main thing is organization in a manner satisfactory to international standards or in accord with international standards. Um, I've encountered a lot of people who said they've got seats in the UN and all of these things, and I live in the UN. I stay on the website. I've searched and crawled every inch of that site, and they have all. Well, it's down from 219 nations. It's down to like, with these recent global happenings, it's down to about 100 and like 96 or something like that. But um, one of the things that we have to understand is we are a new nation. The Iroquois Confederacy was not the only group. They were just a group of nations who agreed to live together under the Iroquois uh, Constitution, the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse. They were just a small group up in the Great Lakes area. There were way many other tribes and nations here. So when going back to the cultural perspective of what, you can't take just this one perspective of what you see and try to apply it to everything in the cultural perspective. There were many different nations, many different cultures, many different ways and traditions. They ran into the Iroquois because they came down that river, the James, or I forget what it is up by Maine and all that. That's how they ran into the Iroquois. But we have to get organized before we make any moves. That's the one thing that is stopping us. And everybody's not meant to know law. Period. Everybody doesn't have the and this is not to insult anyone, but it's a fact of life. Some people are artists. Some people have the legal mind. Some people are scientists. The scientists may not understand the legal or have the drive or the pool of the legal aspect. So everybody can't do this. So at some point, some of those people who don't understand law but still pretend to be leaders of their nation, they have to come to the realization that, okay, I don't really know this, and this is the best for our people. Because without this, like I said, all they look at us as is a bunch of people calling ourselves Moors, a bunch of black people calling ourselves Moors who really don't necessarily understand what they're talking about, because we've been doing this same thing since, I mean, if you want to talk about the straw man thing, since the 90s. But prior to that, all we've been doing is really spinning our wheels. That's all we've been doing. And it's evident in all of the court cases, in everything. And when you just look back, and it's most prominent in the court cases, because that's how we're trying to get free. That's how we're trying to get out of this. So the one thing that we have to do is really understand who we are. For one, we are the first nation of people on this planet to call ourselves Moors. They said the first recorded use was a Roman word when they came across the Mediterranean and seen all the dark-skinned faces. And the term Moor, Maures, was a Greek term, and it stands for basically dark-skinned people, Moors. It was corrupted down to Moors. And this information can be found in Dr. Ivan Van Sertima's book, Golden Age of the Moor. So when that's the first thing, we have to understand that there has never been a Moorish empire per se. There's been a Moroccan empire, which included Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, and all the quote unquote Barbary powers. But there's never been specifically a Moorish empire. Again, we are the first people, since Noble Drew Ali started this movement in 1913 AD. We are the first people on the planet to call ourselves Moors. So that's one of the things we have to organize. Other than that, again, we're going to be spinning our wheels. The case that I'm fighting now is to help that, to get that around, because they will always consider us U.S. citizens or property, basically, whatever you want to call it. But the case is to prove that I am not a U.S. citizen. When that happens, it basically takes me out, because we've never been state citizens. That's Dred Scott. It would take me out of the U.S. citizen status. And basically everyone who's with the Moorish Republic, it would take them out of the U.S. citizen status. And this is the beginning of nation building, basically through their system. We're not asking for anyone's permission to be who we know we are, to be who we are calling ourselves. This is more or less, in studying international law, this is one of the steps to go through, because now when, like, this case is stagnating, it's been a month and they haven't answered. It's been over a month and they haven't done anything on it. So now that opens up a case to the international the Human Rights Commission, because now you're stagnating us and we're fighting. This also opens up a case to the International Court of Justice. So I've stopped fighting in the terms of enforcing the Constitution. The only thing that I'm enforcing on the Constitution, that we are enforcing on the Constitution, is Article 6, which says that treaties are the law of the land. Then you go back to the human rights treaties, which say that we have a right to a nationality. We have a right to cultural, political, economic autonomy and freedom. So that this is the approach that we're taking. This because I've done the straw man thing. I filed every affidavit you could possibly think of, and this is starting back with the UCC1 statements. I don't know if anybody is even familiar with that anymore, but yeah, that's been going on since the 80s. Our people have been doing that. So this is we have to understand who we are. That's the first thing. We have to understand what we are calling ourselves. We have to understand our origins. So at some point, people have to understand the difference between an empire and a kingdom. An empire, well, first, let's say a kingdom. Morocco is the kingdom of Morocco. Now, all of the lands that Morocco conquered is to be considered the empire because they are under Morocco's jurisdiction and control. That is the Moroccan Empire. 1905, I think, 1901, France conquers Morocco. The Moroccan Empire is dismantled. After France comes Spain. The empire is dismantled some more. Well, totally dismantled. So with that, there is no more Moroccan Empire. There is no more Moorish Empire. That is one of the things that we have to understand. All of that was conquered and taken. France and Spain still occupy parts of Morocco. So now when you get to talking about the kingdoms that were part of the empire, the nations that were part of the empire, or the areas that were part of the empire, those people were not necessarily Moroccans. They were conquered nations. They had their own nationalities. But just because they were conquered by Morocco, this is what we're fighting to get out of. The United States conquered us. But now they're trying to say we belong to them or we are their citizens, when this is not the truth. So we are trying to get out of the United States empire. They have Guam. They have all of these other quote unquote territories, but that is part of the U.S. empire. Now,
gotcha.
As it pertains to
I'm gonna give you like a minute left. We wrap it up. We get to another video, another question.
Okay, and I'll stop it at this. It's more or less nationalization. That is the term that we need to be looking at. Nationalization. That is basically having a government and putting everything under the jurisdiction of this government of a different nation. Nations are run by governments. So not just people. Any nation on this planet has a hierarchy of government. I don't care where you go to the deepest jungles of the Amazon. They have a hierarchy of government and they have people, representatives who speak on their all behalf. No one on this planet just governs themselves. Islam.
That's it. Islam.